The most dangerous man isn't the one banging on the door, it's the one quietly asking the questions everyone else is too afraid to speak. That's not just a phrase, it's a wake-up call. In a world drowning in noise, trends, and obedience disguised as virtue, Sigma males are the silent tremor that shakes the foundations. They don't crave the spotlight. They don't beg for validation. But when they question, the corrupt grow nervous, the systems start to crack, and the lies begin to unravel. Here's a bitter truth most people ignore. The average individual consumes over 74 gigabytes of content every single day, and challenges almost none of it. Let that sink in. We're gorging on information while starving our ability to think critically. But Sigma males? They don't play by those rules. They don't buy into the sugar-coated version of reality. They analyze. They investigate. They press until the truth either surfaces or breaks. It's not paranoia, it's precision. And the questions they raise? They make manipulation shiver and propaganda break into a cold sweat. So if you came looking for another soft, flattering personality-type breakdown, you're in the wrong place. But if you're ready to see how Sigma males shake the system, cut through the lies, and shine a light on the shadows, then strap in. This is going to challenge you, shake you, and maybe even ignite a fire in your mind. Don't worry, no fire extinguisher needed. Welcome to 10 Ways Sigma Males Ask the Questions Evil Hopes Stay Buried. Let's rip the veil off, together. Number 1, they challenge the lie that obedience equals success. Sigma males don't buy into the myth that success is purely about effort and merit. They've seen the ugly truth, sometimes the fastest path to the top is through obedience, not brilliance. Just nod at the right times. Smile in the right meetings. Avoid asking hard questions. Suddenly, you're being promoted, not for your mind, but for your compliance. Challenge the norm? Push back against bad ideas? Question authority? Now you're difficult, not a team player, or not aligned with the culture. Sigma males see straight through it. They recognize a system built not to elevate genius, but to reward submission. That's why they start asking the questions no one dares to. Why do the most obedient people climb fastest? Why are the boldest voices labeled as threats? Why is passive agreement praised while independent thought is punished? They're not rebels for the sake of rebellion, but they can't ignore when getting ahead starts looking like silent surrender. They've noticed that many people in power didn't get there by being exceptional. They got there by never causing waves. And once they've made it, they make sure no one else rocks the boat, either. To a Sigma, that's not success. That's a quiet form of slavery, with perks. They believe real success comes from integrity, value, and vision, not from playing politics or mastering fake smiles. So when people label them too independent or hard to manage, they take it as a compliment. Because they'd rather be cast out for thinking clearly than promoted for falling in line. They ask the question most people avoid. Are we rewarding excellence, or just rewarding obedience? And the answer? It's often more uncomfortable than people want to admit. That's why Sigma males don't chase seats at someone else's table. They'd rather build their own table, and rewrite the rules entirely. Number 2, they call out emotional manipulation disguised as messaging. Sigma males have a sixth sense for emotional manipulation. They pick it up in speeches that sound more rehearsed than real, social media posts dripping with staged vulnerability, headlines crafted to spark outrage and hijack attention. While the crowd gets swept up in the emotional whirlwind, Sigma males hit pause and ask, who's cashing in on this emotional reaction? That question? Most people never even consider it. And that's exactly how manipulation thrives. Institutions, whether political machines, corporate giants, or trending movements, wrap their agenda in emotional bait. Fear, guilt, false hope. It's all designed to keep people reactive instead of reflective. But Sigma males don't chase emotional sparks. They examine the wiring behind the scenes. They know when someone is leading with feelings instead of facts, and that's usually a red flag. Because they've learned something most miss. Manufactured outrage is big business. Guilt is often a control tactic. And truth can be whatever sells, if you wrap it pretty enough. This isn't about paranoia, it's pattern recognition. Sigma males have seen what happens when people are emotionally triggered and mentally passive. That's why they interrogate both the message and the motive. They don't just ask, what are you telling me? They go deeper, why now? Why this way? And who benefits? They understand that repeated emotional appeals are often a smokescreen. Because the moment you stop reacting and start thinking, the manipulation falls apart. That's what Sigma males do. They break the spell. They expose the sleight of hand. And because of that, they're often labeled as cold, detached, or too analytical. But here's the truth, they just refuse to be. Emotionally blackmailed into obedience. Shamed into silence, or pushed into outrage without investigation. Sigma males know the most dangerous lies are delivered with a tear or a cheer. So instead of reacting, they analyze. While the world loses its mind, they ask, what's really going on here? And that's the one question manipulation can't afford. Number 3, they expose the absurd morality of fake outrage. Sigma males have a zero-tolerance policy for performative outrage. They don't flinch when the internet's on fire over some carefully selected controversy. In fact, they raise an eyebrow and ask, why this? Why now? Because when everyone's losing their minds over a celebrity's opinion, a 6-second clip, or some algorithm-approved scandal, Sigma males aren't triggered, they're tracking the pattern. They know fake outrage is one of the most powerful smokescreens ever created. It keeps people busy, loud, and emotionally drained while the real problems stay untouched, and the puppet masters keep cashing checks. They notice how the public is conditioned to care about things in cycles. Today's villain becomes tomorrow's hashtag, and by the weekend, we're already mad at someone else. Sigma males step back and ask the one question that instantly kills the mood. Who benefits from this distraction? That alone makes them enemies of the agenda. Because once people realize their anger is being monetized, through clicks, ads, political narratives, and shallow brand activism, it becomes impossible to take any of it at face value. But most people don't want that realization. It's uncomfortable. It requires thinking. So they double down on the outrage and call anyone who doesn't join in insensitive. That's the trick Sigma males refuse to fall for. They know that when outrage becomes trendy, morality gets outsourced to algorithms and PR departments. Suddenly, people aren't thinking critically, they're performing, saying what they're supposed to say, feeling what they're supposed to feel. And meanwhile, the real issues, the systemic corruption, the quiet suffering, the stuff that doesn't fit a trending hashtag, gets ignored. That's what pisses Sigma males off. Not the outrage itself, but how misplaced it is. They don't scream to fit in. They expose the silence where the real outrage should be. They ask, why do people care more about who said what on Twitter than who's pulling the strings behind billion-dollar scams, war economies, and social engineering? They don't get distracted by the loudest story. They follow the quiet money. And that kind of clarity? It's lethal in a world built on manipulation. That's why evil fears them. Because Sigma males don't just see through the illusion, they make it collapse by asking the one question that ruins the whole show. Who's getting rich off your outrage? Number 4, they question comfort zones as weapons of control. Sigma males don't romanticize comfort, they question it. They see how the modern world sells comfort like it's the holy grail. On-demand everything, instant validation, dopamine on tap. But underneath all that convenience is a quiet kind of control, the kind that doesn't need a dictator or a whip. Just a screen, a like button, and a carefully curated illusion of safety. Sigma males ask the kind of questions that make comfort look suspicious. Why is everything designed to be effortless now? Why is discomfort treated like trauma? And more importantly, who benefits when people stay soft, scared, and stuck? They notice how comfort zones are rarely about real peace. They're about program paralysis. The systems are slick about it, too. They tell people they're being protected, empowered, or looked after, when in reality, they're being emotionally bubble-wrapped into compliance. You don't grow there. You don't question there. You just exist in a loop of instant gratification, external validation, and algorithm-approved opinions. Sigma males don't buy into that lifestyle. They view comfort zones like cages with velvet walls, pleasant on the surface, but still a trap. They push past that illusion by asking, what are people really afraid of when they cling to comfort? Is it failure? Rejection? Or the terrifying thought that they might have to think for themselves? That's where Sigma males separate themselves from the crowd. They're not anti-comfort, they're just hyper-aware of how it's being used as a leash. They understand that the most dangerous form of control isn't brute force, it's sedation. It's the kind of life where everything looks fine on the outside, but your soul's rotting because you've been lulled into mental retirement. So they challenge it. They step into discomfort on purpose. They do hard things, not because they're masochists, but because it keeps them sharp, aware, and free. And when they escape the trap, they don't just walk out quietly. They leave breadcrumbs. A tweet here, a question there, a refusal to follow the script, just enough to spark curiosity in anyone else who's starting to feel like maybe, just maybe, their comfort zone is a coffin dressed in cozy language. That's why Sigma males are dangerous. They don't just escape the system, they dare others to see it for what it is. Number 5, they ask, who benefits from making you feel powerless? Sigma males aren't just rebellious, they're surgical in how they question power. They don't automatically push back against authority just to feel edgy. They get quiet. They observe. And then they ask one lethal question. Who benefits when you believe you're powerless? That question alone shreds half of society's conditioning. Because let's be honest, most people aren't taught to think for themselves. They're taught to doubt themselves. Every system, political, educational, religious, or corporate, plants subtle messages that say, "This is too big to change, so don't even try." And people absorb that lie like it's gospel. But Sigma males aren't built to just absorb, they dissect. They want to know why helplessness is always marketed as realism. Why the average person is trained to believe their best option is to adapt, not challenge. And when they ask, who's getting paid when you feel powerless? The truth gets ugly fast. Because there are people profiting from hopelessness. Entire industries make a killing from it. Pharmaceutical giants, media empires, lobbying machines, even social movements that capitalize on victimhood instead of solutions. Sigma males see through that game. They know that if you convince someone their voice doesn't matter, they'll hand over their power willingly. No resistance needed, just a few slogans, a few depressing headlines, and suddenly, the fire inside them turns into silence. That's not peace. That's programming. So Sigas do what most people are too exhausted or too distracted to do: they trace the lie to its source. They follow the money, the media spin, the political timing, and they don't stop until the illusion starts to crack. They're not asking these questions to play devil's advocate. They're asking because they're allergic to mental slavery. And when they do ask, you can feel the system flinch. Because deep down, those in power know, the biggest threat isn't chaos or protest. It's clarity. And Sigma males carry that clarity like a weapon. They don't scream. They don't campaign. They just ask the kind of question that makes people stop scrolling and start waking up. And once that happens, the lie doesn't stand a chance. Number 6, they challenge the morality of silence in good people. Sigma males are wired to notice what others politely ignore. And nothing disturbs them more than the kind of silence that wears a suit, smiles in meetings, and claims to be neutral. They ask the question everyone else tries to avoid. If you claim to be a good person, why are you so quiet when something wrong is happening right in front of you? They're not talking about the loud villains, the ones who thrive on chaos. They're pointing at the so-called decent folks who turn away, stay polite, and say things like, "It's not my place. I don't want to get involved." Sigas see right through that. Because when evil wears a nice tie and uses the right corporate language, suddenly, everyone gets very quiet. And that's exactly how it spreads. To Sigma males, silence isn't neutral. It's enabling. It's compliance with better lighting. And they get especially suspicious when people who constantly talk about values, ethics, and justice suddenly go mute when the injustice is close to home. That disconnect bothers them, because those same good people are often quick to post the right things online, wear the right pins, hashtag the trending cause. But when something real happens, when someone's being crushed by a system or humiliated in a boardroom, they disappear into the wallpaper. Sigma males don't just question this. They confront it, not with loud protests or rants, but with razor-sharp observations that make people squirm. They'll ask, why is your morality so loud when it's safe, and so silent when it matters? They don't care about virtue signaling. They care about action. And they know real evil doesn't need mobs to thrive, it just needs everyone to shut up and carry on like nothing happened. That's the part that makes them dangerous in any environment built on silent complicity. They force people to look in the mirror and realize, being nice isn't the same as being good. Sometimes, evil isn't wearing a villain costume, it's wrapped in HR policies, political correctness, and quiet, calculated avoidance. Sigma males don't let that slide. They don't just ask the hard questions, they ask them in rooms where nobody wants to hear them. Because they know the real battlefield isn't out in the streets, it's in the silence of so-called good people doing nothing. And they're not afraid to light that silence on fire. Number 7, they don't fear the truth that makes them outcasts. Sigma males don't flinch when the truth costs them everything. They don't water it down to keep people comfortable, and they sure as hell don't sugarcoat it to protect their image. They'll ask the kind of questions that get them side-eyed at the dinner table, unfollowed by peers, quietly exiled from fake tribes built on emotional codependency. They know the cost of truth, and they pay it without hesitation. Not because they enjoy being outcasts, but because they've made peace with the fact that truth and belonging rarely live in the same house. They've seen how most people will trade their voice for acceptance, how whole social circles are built on mutual delusion. Don't rock the boat. Don't say the obvious. Don't question the foundation. Just keep smiling. But Sigma males weren't built for groupthink. They don't need tribe validation to function. So when they spot a lie that everyone else is tiptoeing around, they don't play along. They press it hard. And when the group turns cold, they don't beg to stay. They leave, knowing that staying would mean betraying themselves just to keep others comfortable. It's not rebellion for the sake of ego. It's loyalty to reality. Sigma males believe truth is a solo war. It's not about convincing everyone else, it's about refusing to lie to yourself just to feel safe. That's why they walk away from conversations where everyone's pretending, lose friends who once praised their honesty until it cut too close, often stand alone while others bond over shared illusions. And you know what? They're fine with that. Because they'd rather walk alone with a clear conscience than sit in a circle full of smiling liars. They don't see truth as a debate to be won. They see it as a compass that either sets you free or chains you to people who were never really with you. And when the smoke clears, when the fake tribes collapse under their own weight, it's the Sigma male who's still standing. Not because he played the game, but because he refused to. Number 8, they ask, why did privacy become a red flag? Sigma males aren't obsessed with being mysterious, they're just naturally private. But they've noticed something deeply off about how the world treats that privacy. In today's culture, where people upload their trauma, relationships, opinions, and breakfast in real time, the ones who keep quiet are treated like a problem. Sigas don't share for clout. They don't explain themselves to strangers. And that alone gets them flagged, not because they're doing anything wrong, but because they refuse to play the modern, transparency circus that's become society's favorite addiction. They ask the unsettling question. When did keeping to yourself become a red flag? Why is choosing silence over spectacle treated like hiding something? They see how the system doesn't just reward oversharing, it demands it. It trains people to hand over every detail of their lives in exchange for likes, belonging, and validation. Privacy has become the new rebellion, and Sigas know why. Because a private person is hard to sell to, hard to predict, hard to control. If you're not uploading your every mood swing or broadcasting your struggles, how can algorithms study you? How can institutions manipulate you? How can anyone prepackage your identity and sell it back to you? That's the threat. Not that Sigas are dangerous, but that they're unreadable. The system isn't afraid of criminals, it has entire institutions to deal with them. What it fears are individuals it can't categorize. People who don't announce their every move. Who don't beg for approval. Who live by internal codes instead of public applause. Sigas walk through the world with a quiet self-possession that makes others uncomfortable, because it reminds them of how much they've outsourced their identity to apps, opinions, and trends. Sigas don't overshare because they understand the power of mystery, not for manipulation, but for freedom. They know that when you keep parts of yourself untouched by public consumption, those are the parts no one can corrupt. That's what makes them dangerous in a world that thrives on surveillance disguised as socializing. While most people are busy turning their lives into content, Sigas are asking the one question no one wants to hear. Who benefits when you have no inner world left to protect? And the silence that follows that question? That's exactly why they stay quiet, and exactly why the system hates it. Number 9, they challenge the addictive nature of distraction. Sigma males don't just avoid distraction, they dissect it. They know it's not just a modern habit, it's a weapon. In a world addicted to scrolling, swiping, reacting, and consuming, Sigma males pause and ask the question nobody wants floating in their head. Who's benefiting from your inability to sit still with your own thoughts? Because let's be real, most people aren't just distracted, they're hooked. And that's no accident. It's not a glitch in the system, it is the system. They notice how the world doesn't just make noise, it rewards people for staying plugged into it 24/7. Spend hours on entertainment? Normal. Binge irrelevant content? Relatable. Go viral for something pointless? You're a star. But focus? Silence? Solitude? Suddenly you're weird, antisocial, maybe even a threat. That contrast tells Sigas everything they need to know. There's a reason concentration is treated like a superpower now. It's rare because it's under attack. Sigas look at this chaos and don't just shake their heads. They question the architecture behind it. Why is every platform designed to hijack your attention? Why do companies and governments throw resources at keeping people constantly stimulated? The answer is brutally simple: distracted people don't question power, organize, reflect. They don't even realize they're being played. They're too busy chasing dopamine hits to notice the strings above them. And Sigma males don't play that game. They don't just unplug, they resist becoming predictable. They cut through the digital smog and protect their attention like a sacred currency. Not because they're trying to be better than anyone else, but because they know what's really being stolen when you give it away mindlessly. Your clarity, your drive, your inner fire. Sigas know that real control doesn't require chains, it just needs people too distracted to care. So while others are sedated by screens and endless opinions, Sigas ask the question no algorithm wants you to hear. If you had your focus back, what would you finally see? And that's the terrifying part for the system. Because the second someone regains control of their attention, the illusions start to collapse. And Sigma males? They were never interested in the illusion to begin with. Number 10, they refuse to accept coincidence as an answer. Sigma males don't settle for coincidence as a lazy excuse. When the same patterns crash over society like déjà vu on steroids, political scandals recycled, economic crashes following eerily similar scripts, cultural trends rising and falling in perfect loops, they don't shrug and say, "Oh, that's random." No. They smell a blueprint. They see the fingerprints behind the chaos, the hidden architects pulling strings and reusing the same playbook, chapter after chapter. They ask the tough question most people avoid because it makes life feel too complex, too conspiratorial, or simply uncomfortable. Who's behind this? Why do we keep stumbling into the same traps, the same lies, the same injustices, all dressed up with different actors but the same script? Sigmas refuse to believe history is just a broken record playing by chance. They see repetition as evidence of control, manipulation, and intentional design. To them, calling these things random is the easiest way for those in power to deflect responsibility, keep the masses in the dark. It's a smokescreen, a distraction tactic to make people stop asking questions. Sigmas cut through the noise by refusing to accept randomness as an answer. They understand that in a world where data is tracked, politics is strategized, narratives are crafted, coincidence is often the biggest lie of all. They don't obsess over conspiracy theories just to feel edgy. They hunt for patterns to uncover truths, and those truths unsettle everyone else because they demand accountability. Sigmas aren't satisfied until the curtain lifts and the puppeteers are exposed. Because if you buy into coincidence too easily, you give up your power to understand. And that's exactly what the game is designed to do. In a landscape where everything repeats with suspicious precision, Sigma males are the ones who refuse to be fooled. They see the cycles, the reruns, the déjà vu, and they ask the question no one dares. Who benefits from us believing it's all just random chance? That question alone makes them a threat to the comfortable lies most people live by. Final thought. At the core of every Sigma male lies an unshakable urge to strip away the illusions, to question the rules no one dares to speak aloud and to confront the comforting lies society holds onto. They're not driven by rebellion for its own sake, they're the quiet disruptors, the ones digging for truths most people would rather ignore. In a world built to sedate, distract, and control, their questions become fractures in the system, tiny fissures capable of collapsing entire structures. What sets them apart isn't loud resistance or brute strength, it's their sharp refusal to settle for surface-level truths, their bold curiosity, and a fierce independence that turns solitude into power. While the world scrambles to define them, dismiss them, or drown them out, Sigma males keep pressing forward, asking the very questions that evil forces wish would disappear. Because hidden in those questions is the spark of awareness, the beginning of resistance, and, ultimately, the path to true freedom. If this message struck a chord with you, don't just scroll past. Hit subscribe and be part of this awakening. Like the video if you're done accepting the narrative as is. Drop a comment with the questions you think the world's been avoiding. Share this with someone who's ready to think for themselves. Let's start tearing down the walls, one fearless question at a time.